Hello, Richard.
Hi, Fred. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And I think that today we have what we promised last week is a walkthrough of what is a business profile. Just to understand that that's the beginning of everything before compliance. Is just to
That's right.
understand
Yeah.
your business, and from there you move on into the following steps.
Yep. I just want to do a quick walkthrough on that.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
if you'd like, I can share my screen
Yeah,
and we can actually go in and take a look at what are the first steps of the user
right.
experience that a user will experience. So they've signed up. We've sent them a login and an address to log into, and this is what it would look like.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, you let me know if that's all
Yeah,
good and you can
it's
see that.
coming up. Yeah, perfect. We have it on screen.
Okay. All right. So this is a fake user for a brand new company. We just sent them the link and now they're logging in for the first time.
Right.
So they were sent their login ID and their password and here we go, right?
Yeah.
So when they log in, the first thing that they're taken to. Now I've hidden some stuff here,
Yeah.
okay? Some of the company options just so that we can focus on the profile wizard, yeah?
Right.
And there's other than changing their name, you notice that there's no navigation on the left-hand side,
Right.
right? They can hide that or show it.
Yeah.
Um, they could change their theme, they could log off,
Yeah.
right? But that's about all they can do. And the
Right.
reason for that is that a lot of the objects, especially in the compliance space, they depend on that deterministic logic engine that we were talking about in our previous session.
Yeah.
And that depends very heavily on the company profile.
Right.
Okay. So if they haven't gone through the process of actually responding to the questions, that's basically like expecting a compliance consultant to show up and to prescribe solutions
Right.
when they haven't asked you any questions,
Yeah.
right? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is probably one of the most important parts. And it's important to keep in mind that this also feeds into looking at applicability of, certain frameworks and applicability of, um, objectives and things that you have
Yeah.
to deliver. And reasoning is put in there,
Right.
right? So we always justify why does this apply to you? And
Right.
if you find that there's a mismatch, you'll be able to see it there, right?
Yeah.
You'll be able to go back to your profile, and if everything is not 100% correct, and you find, oh, I thought that was correct, but actually it's not. That doesn't make any sense that that something would apply to me. That obligation applies to my business. It doesn't make sense. So you go back into your profile
Yeah.
and be able to change those responses, and it basically recalculates who your company is and what's applicable to your business,
Right.
right?
Right.
But it is important to go through it once. Now, you don't have to do it all in one sitting.
Hmm.
You may not have all the answers, and you may have to go and discuss it with some people, right?
Right.
But what happens is by default, when you click on this button, which is the profile wizard,
Yeah.
it's going to go to, there's a sequence of questions, right?
Right.
And they're done step by step by step by step because some questions depend upon previous answers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But say you got through the first 10, the next time you open the wizard, right? Because you can exit from the wizard. You can't do anything else in the system, but you might want to come back later and finish it off, right?
Right.
You come back and it'll start at question 11
Right.
automatically. Now, if you want to refresh your memory of what you
Yeah.
responded to before, well, I'll show you how you would deal with situations like that. So let's
Hmm.
just start up the profile wizard for this new company. Okay.
Yep.
And you're going to get this kind of a pop-up. Now, this is what's
Yep.
called a modal screen, meaning that you can't exit it. You can only interact with it.
Right.
Right. All right. And you'll have a question and you can provide a response. You can also add a comment for
Right.
your response. Right. So it might be the comment might be that, I'm waiting for blah, blah to let me know, or I think this is right, but I'm not 100% sure. whatever your comment is going to be. Right?
Right.
All your questions start as pending. All
Right.
right. Now, in the current state, not knowing anything about your business, there's currently 59 questions that
Right.
you need to respond to. All right. And
Yep.
you've responded to 0, and you also have a percentage there. So you can track progress a bit. Now, detail is where we can provide a little bit more information or clarity regarding the question.
Right.
Okay. So if it's going to be a long, winded explanation, but we'll add it in the detail, but we'll simplify it in terms of a question. So the way a question looks is it's the step number. So step number 1,
Yeah.
and the category is company.
Right.
So all of these questions have to do with company definition. There's other categories like financial, like health and safety, et cetera, et cetera. But as you work through the various categories, you'll see that that's very clear. And then comes the actual question itself, right?
Yeah.
Are you, I mean, this is pretty simple,
Yeah.
right? Is your organization registered as a UK legal entity? Now,
Right.
the response is always going to be a selection of appropriate responses. Sometimes
Right.
it'll be about sizes. Sometimes it'll be, the idea to get is that the correct response is not free text. It's
Right.
always selection,
Right.
right? So it's always multiple choice, and people love
Right.
multiple choice versus having to write an essay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a
Um,
reason for that, isn't it? Because we are profiling a company against the compliance frameworks. So
yeah,
that
look, it's fairly simple. In the real
right.
world, a particular framework, element, obligation, responsibility, it either applies to your business or it
Right.
doesn't.
Right.
And there's usually reasons for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you gather up all of those reasons, now remember how many thousands we were talking about, right? In
Just
terms of outcomes,
yeah.
obligations, pages to read and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we've managed to condense all of that.
Yeah.
And where it's appropriate, we ask the right questions
Right.
that will determine the applicability of the various obligations and frameworks
Right.
and that kind of thing. All right.
Excellent.
As we add additional frameworks in the future, optional frameworks as opposed to just the critical ones,
Right.
there will be additional questions, right? So when a user comes in here, they're always going to have at the company level a profile percentage,
Right.
right? So that might you'll also receive an alert that you have outstanding pending questions because
Right.
you selected this ISO standard, that kind of stuff, right? So it's smart enough to know, have you answered all the questions for us to figure out,
Right.
what applies to you. But it's as simple as this, right? That
Yeah.
would be a
No,
yes.
right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't that difficult. And you can move through them pretty quickly. I'm just explaining a lot as we
Yeah.
go, right? Now you've got 2 next buttons here. All right. It doesn't really matter the first time through. Okay.
Right.
But what you'll see is that you've got either the next pending question or
Right.
just the next question.
All right.
Okay. Because once I move off of this, because I put in a response, that one's going to be, well, let's just go take a look, right? So if
Yeah.
I go to question number 2,
Yeah.
right? You notice how previous pending is
Yeah.
disabled because there
Right.
is no previous question that you haven't responded to.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, I can click this button, which just takes me to the previous question, regardless of whether it's pending a response or not.
Right.
Now, this allows a user to kind of review, to go back and forward
Right.
through
Right.
various sections, to go straight back to the beginning again, to review the responses, stuff like this. But later on, after the system has done its work, this is actually a list view that the user can look at and actually review them all at one time.
Right.
Like just scroll through 2 or 3 pages of questions
Yeah.
and look at their responses. But in this case, we want people focused on the individual question without being distracted by what is the next 5 questions, right? Okay. And if you notice, the progress moved up.
Yeah.
Right. So if I go to that previous question, you can see its status changed to answered.
All right.
All right. Progress, you've answered 1 out of 59.
Yeah.
And your basic profile percentage is 1% so far.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll climb up faster because there's only 59 questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we want to go to either the next question. If I had any other responses, it would just scroll to question 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5, 6. Right. But if I was bouncing around and I wanted, to answer a question, like maybe question number 3, I didn't respond to, then I responded to 20 of them.
Right.
And then I left one unresponsive, you want to just be able to go to the first one lacking a response and then leap to the next pending.
Right.
Anyway, you can't really hurt it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to start bouncing around. So whether I hit next pending or next question, it's going to be the same because this is the only one with an answer so far.
Right.
I could always decide to go right back to the start, which will bring me to 1. Let's go to next pending, and you can see start takes me back to the beginning.
Right.
Okay. But let's go to the next pending. And once again, this is a yes/no question. Are you part of a wider corporate group? We'll just say no for the sake of, next pending. Is the organization a charity, public body, or other not-for-profit entity? No.
Right.
Next pending. Okay. Well, now it's lunchtime, and I got to quit there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to exit the wizard.
Right.
Now, the next time I log in, I'm going to go to the profile wizard. Notice that it starts at question number 4.
Right.
Because I responded to 1, 2, and 3. I'm 5% in. I've, responded to 3 out of 59 questions. And so there we go. Now, I don't know how to, if we go to the next pending, we could go to the previous question, which would be 4.
Right.
Right. Notice there's no previous pending. It's disabled.
All answers so far.
Yeah, because we basically go. So if I just go next question, next question, next question, next question. Okay, so say I'm there. Yeah. The previous pending, where should that go? Back to question number 4, right? Because that's the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't respond to 8 either.
All right. So
I didn't
intelligent to find
7.
out.
I didn't. Yeah. You're kind of getting it, right? So you can either navigate amongst the questions that you didn't respond to, or you can navigate amongst all questions.
Right.
So that's the internal buttons, previous pending, next pending, or the external buttons, previous question, next question.
Right.
Or you go right back to the start. Now, if I go from the start and say next pending, there I am at 4 again.
Right.
Because I responded to 1, 2, 3. Right? And it's that simple. You can't hurt it. You can't break it. You can't accidentally click something. You can just exit. And that's pretty much it.
And I know to save the answers so far, so you don't have to save it.
Yeah, all the answers are saved, and you can review them en masse later on.
Right.
But until all of the applicable questions are responded to, you're simply not going to see any of the other groups in the navigation, like compliance group, because they're all going to be empty.
Yeah.
All the compliance frameworks are going to be empty. All of the themes and pillars are going to be empty. All the obligations will be empty.
Yeah.
You don't want to be adding, administrative items like new users or any of that kind of stuff. It's there's no point seeing anything else unless you get through the questions. And I calculate, if a person really knows their business, if you were even like, I don't know, 3 seconds per question, it doesn't take very long. That's not very long. You just think about it, 60 questions, right?
Yeah.
That would be 1 minute. If you were 1 second, that's not going to happen, right? 2, 3, 5 seconds, it just, it's not going to take very long for a user to go through that. And I believe, like I said in our last session, the juice is worth the squeeze.
Right.
When they go through all of that, they're going to have a very clear picture of what their obligations are. And then they can start managing those obligations and reviewing them and going through and looking at, a lot of people would be curious, well, why does that apply to me? And there'll be justification there. It'll be based on 1 or more responses to the negative or to the positive or to a range size or something along those lines that you responded to in the profile. So a person can go back and forth tweaking their profile,
Yeah.
but it really does come down to being accurate during the profile creation.
Right. Right. And this is like having a consultant sitting in front of you asking these questions. But actually,
Yeah.
with all the 16,000 pages of guidance that we mentioned last week, and the 5,500, I believe, obligations. This
Well,
is
you're paying a
without
consultant.
consolidation.
Why?
Right.
You're saying to a consultant, look, I don't want to read all of that. I
Yeah.
don't want to have to figure out what applies. Ask me what you need to ask me, and then
Yeah.
tell me what you need to tell me,
Yeah.
and then we'll go on from there. It
Right.
does that.
Yeah.
It does that. So it'll ask a question, give a bit of an explanation, and it'll expect a response that's meaningful to determine whether or not certain
Right.
things apply to your business, right? And the outcome is a whole bunch of stuff, but you
Yeah.
haven't had to engage a consultant. This is a distillation of consulting.
Right. Right. Right.
This is sort of concentration of questions and responses and outcomes
Yeah.
that would typically be quite onerous and take a lot of time
Yeah.
and a heck of a lot of effort. So what we've done is basically put all the effort into the logic and into
Right.
determining what the questions should be and breaking down the frameworks into obligations and that kind of stuff. So that work is done.
Right.
Typically, a consultant would enter your office having knowledge of all of those things and expertise, right?
Yeah.
You don't expect them to come in as a compliance consultant and then they're going to read the framework and the standard. They're going to
Yeah.
come in knowing what they got to ask and what's going to apply to your business, right? So we've tried to add the same sort of thing in there. And that's about as simple as it gets. So on login, that's the experience profile creation using our profile wizard, which has a lot of options in terms of navigating around it. It's not, there's no pressure,
Yeah.
but you really don't get any outcomes from us until you've gone through the process.
Right.
And that's
Right.
just, that makes total sense because the same thing would happen if you engage a consultant. If you don't want to speak to them, they can't help
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
That's all I've got for today.
Okay, fantastic. Because, but I think it's very important explanation because this is let's say it's not even the kickoff of the game. It's actually the training before the game. Because I guess that actually the teams actually more successful are the ones that train longer and harder before any game, so any championship. And it's very important to have this done because otherwise, I think that twofold. One, if you are a person in charge of doing compliance, or you're not, but it's part of your job spec, you need to know what the company is about and all the obligations, the extension of those obligations. Sometimes are
Yes.
diluted in different desks, different inboxes, different responsibilities, outsourced to your accountant or your lawyer or your law firm or a contractor or third party, for example, for maintenance. But at the end, the ultimate responsible always is or the individual or the organization. It's not the contractor, the
Yes.
accountant, the lawyer. So having also this in mind, what is the obligation of my company, I think is very important for anybody that actually want to be compliant, and particularly to
Yeah.
avoid issues in the future.
Well, that's the whole point. That's where you start, right?
Yeah.
All the management practices after that we will be facilitating
Right.
is one thing, but the real tough part of the puzzle is people losing sleep over not knowing what they don't know.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we
Yeah.
want to do is have a body of knowledge that is known.
Yeah.
Identify to them the things you need to know
Right.
in terms of the outcomes that you have to deliver. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the price of that is asking you some questions. And
Right.
I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yeah. No. Well, and I think it's quite interesting too, because actually, if you want to know things, actually, as you said, the things that you don't know and you are probably doing, but you don't know why you're doing it, doing them. So also gives you a kind of a handicap, if you may, because you say what that noise in the background. So why are we still doing this? Actually, probably going through this questionnaire will help to
Yep.
understand why.
Yeah, because obligations are going to lead to tasks and evidence
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
ongoing tasks that need to be done, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Having a justification for that is always good.
Right.
Knowing why you're doing what you're doing, why you're assigning a task to somebody, Well, it's because these 4 different frameworks that we want to comply with,
Yeah.
all of them require it. It's not a matter of, if we're going to do that, it's a matter of when, and just having that there, because you got to remember that first chunk of obligations is going to look fairly lengthy. It's nowhere near as lengthy as it would be without consolidation, but a lot of the stuff you're going to rapidly work your way through. Like I said, just owning, like just buying pAIperTrail satisfies a whole bunch of them that would be knocked out pretty quick.
Right.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
But it all starts with the profile. We said that
You
in our last
mentioned,
session.
yeah, because you mentioned at the beginning, already subscribing to pAIperTrail, you're already 11% into the game already.
Anywhere from 10 to 30% by the
Right.
time you include all of the mandatory, the conditional, the strategic, and the commercial various frameworks. You could sit anywhere from 10 to 30% satisfying compliance just by having the subscription and going through the process and having certain tools available to you. Sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, of course, you're expected to use the tools for reporting breaches and stuff like that, but at least you've got them. Anyway, that's where we sit. Today was about profile, and we'll get into our next session, which would be frameworks.
Oops, sorry, I'm mute. Yeah, I was looking for our next session, because actually we are going to know what is the profile and how they apply. You're going to do the framework, how all the frameworks operate in the backend.
Yeah, I'm just going to show what they are,
Yeah.
how they look, how to navigate them.
Right.
That's pretty much it, because the user doesn't really go in and start editing and creating frameworks. We've added
Right.
that as master data, so they don't have to guess. But sometimes we use different language just to make sure that things are clear to the user, right?
Yeah.
But it's more about being able to navigate and getting used to the fact that every framework is a hierarchy.
Right.
From the top to the sections to the paragraphs to the requirements.
Yeah.
It's all broken down that way. Anyway, that'll be our next session. But today was profiles.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much, Richard. Looking forward for next week.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye-bye.